Salma Sharab was a radiant 22-year-old Palestinian woman, her dark eyes sparkling with ambition and her heart overflowing with dreams. After years of dedicated study, she had finally achieved her goal of graduating from dental school, a milestone that filled her with immense pride and a sense of accomplishment. As she clutched her hard-earned degree, visions of her future danced before her eyes. She imagined herself in a pristine white coat, her skilled hands gently tending to patients' smiles, bringing relief and joy to those in need of her expertise. The thought of establishing her own dental practice, a sanctuary where she could make a tangible difference in people's lives, ignited a fire within her soul. But Salma's aspirations extended far beyond her professional ambitions. She yearned for the warmth and companionship of a loving partner, someone with whom she could build a life filled with laughter, shared dreams, and unwavering support. In her mind's eye, she could envision herself walking down the aisle, radiant in a traditional Palestinian dress, her face aglow with the promise of a future intertwined with the one she loved. Moreover, Salma's heart ached with the desire to experience the profound joy of motherhood. She dreamed of cradling a precious bundle in her arms, gazing into innocent eyes that mirrored her own, and nurturing a life that she and her partner had created together. The thought of raising a family, instilling in her children the values of compassion, resilience, and hope, filled her with a sense of purpose that transcended all else. With her diploma in hand and her dreams burning brightly, Salma felt poised to conquer the world. She was ready to embark on a journey that would see her professional aspirations realized, her heart's desires fulfilled, and her life blossoming into a tapestry woven with love, laughter, and the pursuit of happiness. Little did she know that the harsh realities of conflict and war would soon cast a dark shadow over her dreams, threatening to extinguish the very flames that had once burned so brightly within her soul. Despite the rumblings of conflict between Palestine and Israel, Salma remained steadfastly optimistic, her unwavering spirit refusing to be dampened by the distant echoes of unrest. She had been raised in the heart of Gaza, a place where the warmth of community and the bonds of family were woven into the very fabric of daily life. From her earliest memories, Salma's world had been a sanctuary of love and laughter, a haven where the harsh realities of conflict seemed like a distant whisper on the wind. Her childhood had been spent in a modest yet cozy home, filled with the comforting aromas of her mother's traditional Palestinian dishes and the melodic laughter of her siblings as they played in the narrow alleyways. The neighborhood itself was a tapestry of interconnected lives, where neighbors were more than just passers-by. They were an extension of one's family. Salma could vividly recall the sound of children's laughter echoing through the streets, the aroma of freshly baked bread wafting from open windows, and the sense of belonging that permeated every corner of her beloved community. In this close-knit world, the idea of her cherished way of life being shattered seemed utterly inconceivable. The rumblings of conflict between Palestine and Israel were but distant murmurs, muffled by the warmth and security that enveloped her daily existence. Salma's unwavering optimism stemmed from a deep-rooted belief that the bonds of love and unity that held her community together were stronger than any force that threatened to tear them apart. As she basked in the glow of her recent academic achievement, Salma's heart swelled with gratitude for the nurturing environment that had shaped her into the woman she had become. The laughter of her siblings, the wisdom imparted by her parents, and the unwavering support of her neighbors had all contributed to the unshakable foundation upon which her dreams were built. With her future stretching out before her like an endless horizon, Salma remained resolute in her conviction that the peace and tranquility she had known would endure, shielding her from the harsh realities that seemed worlds away. As she began applying for jobs, Salma's enthusiasm was palpable. She meticulously crafted her resumes and cover letters, pouring her heart and soul into each application. However, her dreams were quickly shattered when, one by one, her job offers were rescinded, leaving her bewildered and disheartened. The once vibrant streets of Gaza began to transform into a grim reminder of the escalating conflict. Food prices skyrocketed, and nearby hospitals overflowed with casualties, their haunting cries echoing through the corridors. Salma's once peaceful neighborhood was no longer immune to the horrors unfolding around them. Whispers of bombings in nearby areas grew louder, and Salma found herself consumed by a sense of dread that she had never experienced before. The once distant conflict was now knocking at her doorstep, threatening to tear apart the life she had so carefully built. One fateful day, the unthinkable happened, shattering the fragile illusion of peace that had once enveloped Salma's world. Without warning, her neighborhood was engulfed in a hail of bombs, their deafening explosions ripping through the air like the roar of 1,000 thunderclaps. In an instant, homes that had stood as bastions of warmth and security were reduced to mere rubble, their walls crumbling like sandcastles before the relentless onslaught. The ground trembled violently beneath Salma's feet, and the acrid stench of smoke and burning flesh assaulted her senses, leaving her gasping for air. Amid the chaos, she bore witness to scenes of unspeakable horror. Lifeless bodies strewn across the streets, their limbs twisted in unnatural angles, their faces frozen in expressions of sheer terror. The once vibrant colors of her neighborhood were now replaced by the crimson hues of spilled blood, painting a macabre canvas that would forever be seared into her memory. As the dust settled, Salma found herself clinging to the few remaining fragments of her once idyllic life, her hands trembling with a mixture of shock and disbelief. The laughter of children that had once filled the air was now replaced by the agonizing cries of the wounded, their voices echoing through the rubble like haunting melodies of despair. With a heavy heart and a mind clouded by fear, Salma gathered what little family and friends she had left, their faces etched with the same haunted expressions that mirrored her own. Together, they embarked on a treacherous journey through the war-torn streets of Gaza, each step a harrowing reminder of the fragility of life. The once familiar landscape had been transformed into a twisted maze of destruction, where the remnants of homes and businesses lay in smoldering heaps, their charred remains a grim testament to the indiscriminate violence that had consumed their world. Shattered glass crunched beneath their feet, mingling with the debris that littered the streets, while the acrid stench of smoke and decay hung thick in the air, a constant reminder of the horrors they had witnessed. As they navigated through this nightmarish labyrinth, Salma's gaze was drawn to the gruesome sights that surrounded them. Mangled bodies lay strewn across the rubble, their lifeless eyes staring vacantly into the distance, their mouths frozen in silent screams. The once vibrant colors of life had been replaced by the muted tones of death, casting a pall over the landscape that seemed to suffocate the very air they breathed. With each step, Salma's heart grew heavier, the weight of her shattered dreams and the loss of her beloved community bearing down upon her like an invisible burden. The fragility of life had never been more apparent, and the once unshakable optimism that had fueled her dreams now seemed like a distant memory, a fleeting glimpse of a world that no longer existed. In the distance, she could see the promise of safety, a makeshift shelter offering respite from the relentless bombardment. But as they drew closer, the roar of planes overhead shattered any semblance of hope they had clung to. Salma watched in horror as the Israeli militants unleashed their fury upon the very sanctuary they had sought. Bombs rained down mercilessly, obliterating the tents and supplies that had promised a glimmer of hope in the midst of despair. In that moment, as she witnessed the annihilation of everything before her, Salma's dreams crumbled into dust. The realization that she might never have the chance to truly live the life she had envisioned, a life filled with love, laughter, and the pursuit of happiness, washed over her like a tidal wave of despair. Her once vibrant eyes, now dulled by the weight of tragedy, gazed upon the smoldering ruins that had become her reality. The acrid smell of smoke and the deafening silence that followed the explosions were a cruel reminder of the harsh truth. her life had been stolen before it had even begun. As the sun began to set on the horizon, casting its final rays upon the devastation that surrounded her, Salma found herself questioning the very purpose of her existence. In a world where dreams were shattered and innocence was lost, she wondered if there was any hope left for those who dared to dream of a better tomorrow. The once cherished visions of a loving family, a fulfilling career, and a life filled with joy and purpose now seemed like cruel illusions, taunting her with the promise of a future that would never be realized. The laughter of children, the warmth of a loving embrace, and the sense of belonging that had once been her anchor had all been torn away, leaving her adrift in a sea of despair. As the last rays of sunlight faded, Salma's gaze was drawn skyward, where she witnessed the ominous silhouette of an Israeli bomber cutting through the twilight sky. In that moment, time seemed to slow to a crawl, and a sense of resignation washed over her like a tidal wave. With a heavy heart and a weary soul, Salma embraced the inevitable, her eyes never leaving the bomber as it released its deadly payload. As the bomb hurtled towards her, she closed her eyes, a single tear trailing down her cheek, and welcomed the oblivion that would finally bring an end to her suffering. In those final moments, as the world around her erupted in a blinding flash of light and a deafening roar, Salma found a strange sense of peace. For in death, she would be reunited with the dreams and innocence that had been so cruelly torn from her grasp, and her weary soul would finally find the rest it had so desperately sought.